Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Lisa Stone.
Hi, everybody. Hello, welcome back from lunch. It is really an honor to introduce my friend Soledad O'Brien, who is an award-winning anchor and special correspondent for CNN. Soledad and I first met when, in the late 90s, she recorded some of the very first web-based videos on women in technology for Women.com, where I was the editor-in-chief at the time. Soledad and husband, Brad Raymond, are the founders of the Soledad O'Brien and Brad Raymond Foundation. The foundation helps young women provide a bridge between obstacles and opportunity, and it gives them the experiences, education, and resources to overcome unexpected barriers to success. We're going to watch a little video about how this foundation started, and then we'll meet Soledad.
Money is tight. I know sometimes my mom has to decide between paying the rent or paying the light bill.
And Ursulane's an expensive school.
Yes, it is. So, yeah, she has a lot to worry about. I feel sad for her.
You do?
I try not to ask for too much.
I was surprised because when I found out I was pregnant with Jalen, I was already 2 months. I didn't know. So,
How old were you?
16 when I found out I was pregnant. Sometimes I can't even see my future. There's still days when I'm like, I feel like I'm at a standstill. I mean, even though I'm going to school and taking care of my son, I just feel like I'm still getting nowhere.
Tuition at NYU was $50,000 a year, about $50 a year.
So you got a scholarship for 25.
Right, 25 was my scholarship.
Did you love it?
I loved New York. I loved just the atmosphere being there. I loved my dorm. I loved everything about it. Then, I mean, money got tight, but it was always tight from day one. So, I guess I kind of felt it coming to an end, but it was kind of like I didn't know what else to do to stop it.
Where's your mom?
My mom's in California.
She left. Did she tell you she was leaving? She just moved to California?
Yes.
I initially came from a very comfortable middle-income background, but things changed when I was 16. My mother and stepfather filed for a divorce, and towards the end of that year, my stepfather committed suicide and burned down our home, and that changed our financial stability.
I guess with Naya, one of the things that really struck me was that we were able to change her life, that this was a young woman with a son who you could look out and see what her future would be.
Where I come from, people don't really go to school. They don't have college educations. So it was like, seeing it even happen for me. I'm not even 25 yet. I'll be done with college in like a year.
Tell me what that scholarship has done for you.
You don't know me firsthand. You don't know my experiences, but to trust me and and it's also so important. Like, I'm at school and I'm like, okay, I can't just do it for myself. I have to do it for the scholarship too. I have to make these people proud. I have to, and it's so nice to do that. It's like very rewarding.
We're so proud of you. It's so funny to hear your side of it, because my side of it is like, here's a girl who is busting her ass to make this work. I want her around my kids. I want my kids to see, if you want something, if you really want it, you can do it.
We have tried to create a foundation that has a family feel to it, and it includes, obviously Soledad and I, it includes our kids, it includes a lot of our friends, and that's part of the reason for that is that we want to give the foundation a family feel, and we think that will allow us to be more impactful with the girls that we are working with.
I think we knew that if you could jump in at the right moment, you really could take someone who was heading this direction and move their life this way.
I think I'm blessed. That's what I think. I think God being with me most of the time and have put the right people around me.
And Maria crossed the Rio Grande with an inner tube. She can't swim. And her story of how she came to this country, ended up in a detention center, eventually was able to get her visa, and recently got her green card. This is a young woman who, at the worst moments in detention in Miami, would say, but I'm focusing on my homework because it helps me keep my mind off on how bad my life is. I report on the stories, and often they're bad stories. Often they're stories where disasters have happened, terrible things have happened, bad statistics have happened, and you're following someone's life. But in this case, we can make a difference. We can change the end of the story.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Soledad O'Brien.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a great
Appreciate
one.
that. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here today. For those of you who know my work, I spent most of my work life covering stories. I'm a reporter. 25 years I've been really just telling the stories of other people. And after Hurricane Katrina, I started discovering all these young women who really had been left without, and they just needed help. And one of the things we decided to do with our foundation was to provide wraparound services for these young women, because we knew either they had a kid, or they needed textbooks, or they needed tuition, but they needed more than that. It was never just about the money. They needed wraparound help so that they would have their tuition paid for, but also have mentoring, and also have people who would guide them, almost like I look at my own children and say, oh, you will go through college. We will push you, we will pull you, we will help you at every step, but we will do it together. And it has been such a remarkable and amazing experience as a mother to be able to help specifically young women meet their goals and reach their goals, and even figure out that they have goals. So I feel like I've gained so much from our foundation, and probably much more than some of these young women are getting from us. Today, we're here because we've discovered that there are women are so well positioned to make change. And today we're going to talk to a couple of women who'll join me up here. We'll talk a little bit about the difference that they're making and how they've been able to leverage social media to make the changes that they want to see, sometimes domestically and sometimes just around the world. It's a conversation with two very powerful women, but I think even though they are, quote-unquote celebrity women, what they've really been able to do is leverage their advantages to help other women and children. So I'm going to introduce you to two of them. We'll bring them out, and then we'll show you a little bit about the work that they're doing and start our conversation. We'll talk for roughly 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll open the conversation up to everybody in this room to ask your own questions as well. So Christy Turlington Burns is a global maternal health advocate. She's also the founder of Every Mother Counts, an advocacy and mobilization campaign to increase education and support for maternal mortality reduction around the globe. Every Mother Counts seeks to engage new audiences to better understand the challenges and the solutions, while encouraging people to take action to improve the lives of girls and women around the world. Prior to the launch of EMC in 2010, Turlington Burns completed and debuted her documentary film, No Woman, No Cry, about the global state of maternal health. Please join me in welcoming Christy Turlington Burns. Malaak Compton-Rock has leveraged her career in public relations to develop philanthropic cause-related campaigns and programs focused on education and poverty disparities in the United States and in Africa. In 2008, as a way to encourage people to live a life of service and as an umbrella organization for the 6 main causes that she works on full-time, Compton-Rock founded the Angel Rock Project, an online e-village that promotes volunteerism, social responsibility, and sustainable change. Please join me in welcoming Malaak Compton-Rock. Malaak, we'll start with you. Sure. We're going to run a clip of your work, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Okay. Let's roll that.
In a Houston lab, they're searching for a secret. They're looking for an answer to a question that haunts a 14-year-old boy in Brooklyn, New York.
So in the top here.
If successful, they'll be able to tell him exactly who he is and where he comes from.
All I know is that I'm Donovan. I'm Donovan Rogers, 14 years old. That's it. I'm from New York.
Now tell me why.
Though he didn't know it then, when Donovan met Malaak Compton-Rock a year ago, he was on his way to discovering his roots. Malaak runs a program to empower kids called Journey for Change. She took Donovan and 29 other Brooklyn teenagers to Africa to show them the advantages they have at home, letting them see firsthand how kids in shanty towns live. To mark 1 year in her program, Malaak offered the kids DNA tests, a possible key to their pasts.
I cannot think of a greater gift to give these kids than their genealogy. I think that any of us who don't know our ancestry or our heritage more than 1-2 generations feel a sense of not being complete.
Slavery has robbed many African Americans of their family histories.
My husband was fortunate enough to already do his DNA.
So he was in the service.
Her husband, comedian Chris Rock, says he fell into comedy as a 20-year-old. DNA tests traced his roots to Cameroon. More research showed he was related to a freed slave who fought with Union soldiers. It was information he wished he'd had as a child.
It would have taken away the inevitability that I was going to be nothing.
The kids began DNA testing a month ago.
I need you to come. You move your body.
All I know is that my grandmother, she has a dark complexion. My father has a dark complexion. Heritage is not a color. It's more of a cultural thing, like their religion and where they've been, what they've gone through. It's black. It's not who I am, and it's not what I'm gonna be.
After years of wondering, Donovan and the other kids had to wait 4 weeks till they got some answers.
It's like I have a heart on my body, and my answer's inside of it, but it's chained up. Once that key is handed to me, what knows what could happen.
They could be disappointed. There's a chance the DNA tests won't give definitive answers.
It's been a long wait. It's taken a while.
Yeah, I'm in jittery, like this.
Weeks of waiting ends on this night before an auditorium full of people who've come to support Donovan and the other kids.
All right, guys, ready for the truth? Here it comes.
Dr. Henry Louis Gates of Harvard University was there to reveal the answers.
You are descended, on your mama's side, from the Temne people in the country of Sierra Leone.
I'm complete now. I know more about me and where my ancestors come from. And now that I know this, I'm gonna take it further and just come more of that culture, because that's who I am.
So what's next? Maybe another trip to Africa.
You want to hop on a plane and go there?
Yep, I'm gonna make a way. As little as I am, I'm gonna make a way.
Soledad O'Brien, CNN, New York.
Malaak, let's talk. You mentioned there are sort of 6 different projects under your umbrella project.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the 6 projects and how did you create the focus on those 6?
Well, I think it's important when it comes to philanthropy that you kind of figure out what you want to do to give back. So for me, I really care about children and women, and education. So I focus in the United States, in Brooklyn, and I focus in Africa. So in South Africa, I work with HIV and I work with women. So Journey for Change, Empowering Youth Through Global Services, the program that you just saw in this program, where we take children from Brooklyn to South Africa. One of the reasons why we do this is that we believe that in order for children to, for children to
Since I spent a lot of time covering Journey for Change, Malaak didn't say it, but we did a documentary where we went to Africa together, and I have to point out that in Africa, every day, I got grungier and grungier, and Malaak, every single day of our shoot, would look more and more fabulous. I don't know how that happened, but one of the things that you did was to really focus on women and children, and often those two things aren't separate.
Right.
You can help the mom by helping the kids at the
Right.
same time. And
Right.
Christy's nodding your head because that's similar for you as well.
Right, right. Journey for Change is a program where we take children. The mission for Journey for Change, Empowering Youth Through Global Service, is, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, because I think what I want to do is ask Christy to weigh in on this as well. Children and mothers, I think sometimes they take two programs that separate sort of the agenda, but really you cannot help one without the other.
Exactly. I mean, we know that if a mother is empowered and if she's supported, she will thrive, and if she thrives, her family will thrive. So it's this, it's a correlation. There's, it's a continuation or a continuum of care, and that's why we focus on the mom. But it's obviously looking at the fact that, we're looking at her family, and, she's going to make sure that her kids get educated, that they eat, that they get vaccinated, that they do all of the things that they need to do so that they can thrive and survive, beyond 5, which is, a big feat for a lot of kids in the world.
You started your foundation because of your own experience in childbirth. You have 2 children, healthy children, thank God, but the experience with your daughter had some complications. What happened?
It did. So 9 years ago, almost, I delivered my first child, and I had a great pregnancy and a really good delivery, the delivery that I wanted and that I chose. But about an hour or so afterwards, I did not get to the 4th stage of labor, and I started to hemorrhage. And luckily, I was in the right place at the right time. I was in a birthing center within a hospital here in New York City, and I had a midwife and nurses and a doula and an obstetrician who came in to back them. And my situation was managed, and I learned afterwards, though, that same complication is the leading cause of maternal death in the world, and that hundreds of thousands of women die from pregnancy or childbirth-related causes. And that was completely shocking to me. I mean, I thought maybe there's a very, very rare scenario where a mother may die. But most of us are really concerned with our child survival and with our newborn. Is the newborn okay? Does my baby are they breathing properly? Do they have their 10 fingers and toes? Is everything okay with the baby? And oftentimes, the mother's in the room sort of sitting quietly as everybody's fussing over the baby. And that's sometimes when the mother's health can be at risk too. So this sort of led me on a journey to make a documentary film called No Woman, No Cry, where I looked at, around the world in Tanzania, Guatemala, Bangladesh, and in the US as well, at the barriers for women accessing, health care when they need it. And oftentimes being pregnant is sometimes the only opportunity you have to see a health care provider in many parts of the world. And so it is this opportunity to get into a life and affect the rest of the family through her becoming a mom.
We have a clip for your work as well, and I want to play that, and then when we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about strategy for the folks who are in this room. Let's play that.
We all know what mothers do. They do the big things, the little things, the things that hold a family together. Now imagine if a mother wasn't there at all. Every 90 seconds, a mother dies from complications related to pregnancy or childbirth. That's 1,000 women every day. Yet almost every one of these deaths can be prevented, if only we stood up and made it a priority. I started Every Mother Counts because I believe every mother should have a chance. So starting today, we're asking you to help. With every action you take on our website, we'll be sending a message. And with every dollar we raise, we'll be funding programs. Programs to provide transportation, examinations, medication, midwives, and hospital care. And 100% of every dollar you raise goes directly toward these life-saving programs for women just like you who just need a chance. Join us. Let's take that sisterhood of motherhood and solve this. Starting today, every action counts. Every dollar counts. Every voice counts. Every song counts. Every mile counts. Starting today, every mother counts.
For both of you, what has been the biggest challenge in getting your message out?
Sorry for that brain fart.
What's been the biggest challenge? Where have you struggled the most, do you think, in getting your message about helping young people in Brooklyn and in Africa and helping mothers around the globe and domestically as well? Where's the challenge in getting your message out?
I mean, for me, it's a lot of times this information is information that people don't know. So that's easy to share information and then to sort of, give people the opportunity to take that information in, and most likely to, share that with somebody else, which is our goal. I think the most challenging is that while 90% of these deaths are preventable, and many of the solutions are very simple and inexpensive, it's a complex problem, because what it requires is functioning healthcare systems. And when you get into talking about healthcare systems and strengthening of systems, that becomes like blah, 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 blah. And it's hard. And so, we try to start with the conversation with where we all have common ground, right? Mom to mom, sister to sister, friend to friend, and then to build on that. And then of course you can bring into the other complications, which are if there's no infrastructure, how do you get a woman to a hospital if she needs that care? Or you get her to the hospital and then there's no blood, or we don't know what kind of blood she needs. There's all of these other pieces. But I think really starting at the place where we all understand, where this is a universal experience, and then building from there. And then, we can't solve all of the problems all at once, but, there are so many things that we can do. So whether it's giving a ride to a mom, or it's making sure that she has healthy food and nutrients during her pregnancy, all those little pieces that ultimately will make an outcome more likely to be successful.
I think too, for me, I think I have challenges for people understanding that we should care about people all over the world. I have people ask me all the time, why do you care about women who live halfway across the world? Why do you care about that woman who lives in South Africa? Why do you care about that child who lives in a village in Ghana? Why do you care about that child who is in slavery in West Africa? How do you
answer that?
Huh?
How do you answer that? What do you say?
Because I care about all children. Because we are all human beings. Because all children matter. Because we're all human beings. Because every child matters. I remember one time I was blogging in a shanty town in Deep Slit, which is this little tiny area in Johannesburg. And I got into an argument on Twitter because I saw this little naked child, skinny, malnourished, and I was just so hurt and devastated by how,
we saw that all the time when we were doing that story.
Right, when we were doing the story.
And I have to
was
imagine you too.
Just crying by how I couldn't help him. And I was describing how hungry he was. And this woman said, "Why do you care?" And I was twittering about it. And I said, "Why shouldn't I care?" And anyway, I was going back and forth with her. And I just stopped. And I said, why am I even, having this argument with her? And so that is, one of the problems, that I think we have.
I think also shared, and for the two of us who deal with the young people specifically in some of our programs, sometimes the young people you're helping can be a challenge. When we did our documentary together, a lot of the story was some of those young people who you were giving opportunities to, who had to rise to the occasion to take the opportunity. And it makes a great dramatic arc in a documentary, but it would break your heart.
It would break my heart.
You spent a lot of time crying over trying to make some of the kids successful. How do you keep going? What's been the biggest disappointment, and how have you overcome it?
Well, we're still a pretty small organization and fairly new. I founded Every Mother Counts, in 2010. So we haven't had a lot of, bad things happen yet. We haven't hit a lot of walls. It feels like still very new, and there's still so much to do. I think, growing as an organization, the challenges I think about is I want to stay lean. I created my organization as a campaign, not as a foundation at first. I thought, there's a lot of stuff in the maternal and newborn child space. I don't want to be another foundation with more people and administrative and bureaucracies. I really just didn't want to add to that chaos, because at a certain point, all of that world is very fragmentized, and it becomes another barrier to women getting the care that they need. So that was really a priority. And then eventually it came to the fact that we can only do this if we get to the next level. And at a certain point, you have to consider growing, and you have to consider, where are your big picture goals? And this is one of those issues that we need to do a lot to make a real impact. And so, I can't put a time frame on it. I can't say that in 3 years or in 5 years or in 10 years, it's gonna be resolved. I need to say that this has got to have a long-term plan with short-term, results. And so we're sort of trying to map ourselves out in that way now.
I think a lot of times when you're trying to tell your story, a lot of the conversations we had at first when we started helping young women was, well, how do you scale? Mm-hmm. How do you scale? How do you take, now you have 6, individual programs, Malaak. Do you get that question about, how do you scale and grow it? Because I think for a lot of us, scaling and keeping your arms around it are 2 very different things, and suddenly you're not running it and you're not running it, you're thinking of others running what is your passion, which is a little scary.
I'm sorry?
I was talking about how do you scale, because you and I had that conversation a few times before. Were you worried about that, Christy?
Yeah, I very much worry about that, and scale is the big question. I mean, it's a scale with program, and I see all over the world of these pilot programs, which all have incredible potential, but they're pilots forever, and what that message is to the countries and the people who are working on these programs every day, and the people who are, who really need the services, what that says to them is that it's not going to be there forever. And so, we're trying to come in and look at, successful, scalable programs and then help supplement them so that they can get to that place, because they're so tiny that they might not, show up on the radar of a larger organization. But for us, we really want to stay lean. We want to be flexible. We want to be able to, enjoy what we've enjoyed so far, which is that we're not a bureaucracy. We can make decisions around a table. And I feel like whenever we get to a place where we can't all look at each other in the face and make a decision together in the moment when a crisis happens or when, a successful thing is happening, I think, that's our big, nobody wants that. Nobody wants a big organization.
How many trips, Malaak, have you done to Africa with your girls? I know I've been involved in a couple of them. How many would you say?
I would say we just took, 2 weeks ago, our 12th trip.
12th?
Our 12th trip. We just took a trip to Namibia in South Africa. Lola, who is 10, just completed a trip to South Africa, which was a working trip, in Namibia. She has gone with me to South Africa, Ghana, Namibia, Sierra Leone, let's see, I believe that's it. She took a tremendous trip with me to Ghana, which was to rescue child slaves in Katakrache,
You literally were buying children.
We were
back.
literally buying children in an area in Katakrache, Lake Volta, where children are in the fishing industry. There are over 7,000 child slaves who are as young as 2 years old. They are sold by their parents, who are clearly in horrible poverty, working about 18 hours a day, who are fishing in the fishing industry. Many of them die because they are diving for fish. The children are in sexual servitude. They sleep outside, many with the cattle. And my daughter was 8 years old when we went on that trip. And we would go out on the fishing vessels with a person who would help to negotiate with the slave masters to free the child slaves. We were very lucky on that trip and were able to free 2 slaves and brought them back to Tema, Ghana, and spent a whole week with 2 child slaves, which was an extraordinary experience. So.
Part of that experience was to have the young people,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Part of the experience was to have the young students you were with learn that slavery still exists outside in the United States and sometimes inside.
Right, so we took 2 of the Journey for Change kids who you saw in that original piece. So 2 African American kids from Brooklyn to Ghana were able to witness the release of African kids, the release of them. So it was quite an extraordinary experience, an experience of my kids to witness that.
And I wanted to talk about that because certainly for me and my husband, our motivation to some degree in starting the foundation had a lot of factors, but one part was to make sure that our children who've been given a number of advantages really understand kind of how the world works. And not the world that they've been born into, but the greater world and what their role can be. I know you have the same thing with your 2 kids. How they're littler, a little littler than ours. How do you involve them in what you're doing, and what is your long-term strategy for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest gift I can give my children is to see the world, and the sooner the better. You know, I'm taking my children to Tanzania in a week's time, and my husband for the first time, but my daughter's been with me to El Salvador, which is where my mom's from, and my parents took my sisters and I around the world really early. For me, and the work that I do specifically, you know, they were very little when I was making my film. I mean, my son was 2 and my daughter was 4.5. And, you know, this work came to me because of the experience delivering grace. So I say, since I was graced, she set my life on a different path. And so she's quite proud of this. And she's a girl, so this work very, you know, in a very immediate way will affect her and her, you know, reproductive health and her awareness of being a girl in this world today. My son, on the other side, you know, he's a boy, but my job as his mother is to make sure that I'm sharing, you know, gender balance in our home every day, and for him to also see that, you know, that I'm very focused on girls and on health, but also that my husband and I have a very equal household in the way that we, you know, that we share our roles as parents, but also the way that we support each other in our passions. And so for both of those children, you know, boy and girl, it's as important to lead in that way and show the world, you know, just simple things in your own home as well as the larger world and how other people live and what life could be like if they weren't where they were.
One of our scholars, Tiara, who was going to apply to Harvard Law School, came to stay with us. She was in college in California. Came to New York. We sent her. I called Charles Ogletree, the famed Harvard professor, and begged a favor if she could sit in on his class. And we sent her up from New York by train up to Harvard, where she spent the day walking around the campus, et cetera. And so when she was coming from California, we realized, because we had friends staying, we live in a New York City apartment, we didn't have enough space. And I remember trying to figure out, well, maybe we should put her up in a hotel nearby, et cetera. And my husband said, no, kick the girls out of their bedroom. They will sleep in sleeping bags in the living room on the floor, and Tiara will take their bedroom. Because he was really, and I realized at that moment he was exactly right, that we wanted her in our home, around our dinner table, so she could be an example to our girls of all that she had to overcome, which was long and very complicated and very sad in some ways. And for my girls to see her as a living example of someone tomorrow was going to go up by train to try to figure out how she was going to go get into law school. And I just thought it was such a great opportunity to constantly involve our kids in the lives of these young women, and these young women also in their lives. Someone else said to me, you know, we have a small board, you can have your children or other children join a board as a junior member at age 12, which I thought was a brilliant idea. They have to write an essay and apply, but it's a great way to get a child to start getting their toe in the sort of the system of a family-centered foundation, which I thought was brilliant, and I appreciate it. I think for a lot of people, they don't always know what to do. What do you advise people to do? I mean, for the people in this room, all of them have access to jillions of followers and always have an opportunity to send messages out. What would you like the people here to be able to do?
Do you want to start, or do you want me to? Oh, there we are. Well, we always try to encourage using your voice. Like, once you know something, to be able to share that information. So using your voice is a really powerful tool. It doesn't cost anything. It's our greatest human resource. And when you use your voice in a place like our country, where we are able to do so, on behalf of others who really just don't have that option. So it's a really important thing to utilize. And the other thing is, like, for us as an organization, we're trying to raise awareness, but also support for programs that will...
Financial support.
Yeah, financial support. I mean, awareness is the most important, but without being able to give those services, it's a tricky balance. So we offer a number of different ways on our website, everymothercounts.org, to get involved, to engage if this is an issue that does speak to you. I mean, for me, over the years, it's always been something that's been a personal connection, but it doesn't always have to be. I mean, it could be the fact that you've had a baby and you actually did have everything you did need. You didn't have to almost die in order to wake up to something like this. But it really has to speak to you, and you also have to try. If something doesn't really reach out to you, there are so many things to do. If each one of us went out there and made one effort, we could solve a lot of the world's problems. There are enough of the problems, there are enough of us. There's 7 billion of us, So I encourage you just to make the effort and try. And then, I really want to put an end to this mommy war stuff. Moms need moms.
Yes, please.
Right?
Oh, God.
We need each other more than anything. And so to stop sort of separating us and making us divisive and politicizing our bodies, I mean, we need one another. And so it's something that I always encourage is, mommies need mommies.
What would you say, Malaak?
I just think giving should be very personal. You just saw, thank you for showing the video of mine. My giving is very personal. Journey for Change is very personal to me. My husband's from Brooklyn. I got involved with the Salvation Army because he's from Brooklyn. I fell in love with South Africa because I took a trip there. So Journey for Change is because of my love for Brooklyn and my love for South Africa. So give what's personal to you. If you're a lawyer, use your legal skills. If you're a photographer, give back to a nonprofit using your photography skills. If you're a videographer, donate your videographer's skills. If you're a florist, donate your floral skills to a nonprofit. If you're an accountant, a nonprofit needs your accounting skills. If your professional skills, donate those to a nonprofit. A nonprofit can save money if you donate those skills to it. Please remember that any amount of money that you donate to a nonprofit needs it. The average amount of money that's donated to a nonprofit is $4.20. The notion that people give $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 to a nonprofit is not true, okay? $4 is the average amount of money that people give, okay? The amount of a cup of coffee at Starbucks is what people give. That's what makes nonprofits go around, okay? So please give to nonprofits. They really need it. And volunteer, okay? Volunteer once a month, 3 times a month, whatever you have to give, volunteer. Our nonprofits need you to volunteer to them. And just figure out where you want to volunteer. If you want to volunteer to the elderly, HIV/AIDS, whatever cause speaks to you, figure out what your platform is. Whatever you want to make a difference, figure out what that is, where you want to make a difference. For me, it's education, it's women, and it's children. Where do you want to make a difference?
Before we open it up to questions with a little bit of time that we have left, I'm going to leave you with a quick story that was told to me when I was working in Haiti doing a documentary on missionaries who were helping Haitian orphans. And we had gone in right after the earthquake, and it was one of the saddest, most difficult things I've ever had to shoot, because they'd bring the orphans outside. Everybody was concerned that the buildings would fall in. So the babies were in porta cribs outside in the heat. And of course, the flies were around, and there were still aftershocks, and it was terrifying. And finally, after seeing all these babies just crying and then literally dying sometimes the next day, I would say to the missionaries, like, how do you do this? How do you come in every day when you know there is no light at the end of the tunnel every day? I mean, Haiti was bad before the earthquake, and now it's terrible. How do you get up every day and try to save 50 orphans, 60 orphans, when there are 400,000 orphans in this country? How do you do it? And the missionary, who was the focus of our documentary, said, well, you know, it's the story of the starfish. I was like, what's a starfish? You know, it's a starfish story. A little boy is walking along the beach, and all the water's gone out, so the starfish are all beached on the sand. And the kid starts picking up starfish and chucking them back into the water. And a man comes up to him and says, what are you doing? The beach is full of starfish. It goes for miles. There's no way you're going to be able to pick up all these starfish. This is a complete waste of time. And the kid picks up a starfish and says, well, I guess it matters to this one, and chucks it in. And I love that story, partly for the story that we were telling about Haitian orphans, but for me it really resonated about a life mission, which was it really is about picking up the one and making a difference for the one. And if you do it well and you do it consistently and you're able to share your story, you start encouraging other people to come out to the beach. And they start picking up a couple of starfish. And then if you can get some momentum because you're able to get a message out to a wider audience and maybe even leverage it through social media, you can have a lot of people on the beach chucking starfish in. And you can make a real difference. And you can really move the needle, whatever that corner of the beach is that is the thing that matters to you and is of interest to you. And I've never forgotten that story. I love that story because I think for each person it's just grab the starfish, chuck them back in. You know, if you get one, it matters. I'm going to open it up to questions. Let's raise the lights a little bit. I know we've got some microphone holders for us, but I can't see them. So if you will make yourselves right down here, why don't you come up front? I've got a table, a very aggressively interested in jumping in table. Why don't you stand for me, ladies, and get that mic right to you. The tighter you keep your questions, and if you direct them to a person, you can get all your questions in. Right there is perfect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erica Diamond, and on my blog, Women on the Fence, I interviewed this magnificent woman. I'm blinded by her inner beauty and outer beauty. But it wasn't a question, it was just a comment that you're a gift to women. I'm going to cry. I always cry, I'm sorry.
You are.
I'm very emotional. And I think that we should celebrate what you've done, and we need to celebrate. My blog encourages women to get off the fence and get unstuck. And congrats for getting off the fence and getting unstuck and paving the way. I'm sorry, I'm so cheesy.
We love
I always
crying.
cry.
We love the crying.
It's
We
part
love
of
the
who
crying.
I am. And it was just to say kudos to you and congrats. And
Thank you. We appreciate that comment. Thank you very much. We've got another friend right here.
I just wanted to say that, like, when I first started using social media, it was, like, very daunting for me. And Erica is one of the first people that I started to follow, and then she was like, do you want to do a Q&A? Yes! Doing Q&As for so many bloggers now, but I really thank you for getting me off the fence and my stickedness from social media.
Thank you. Well done, well done. Got another question right here.
Hi, Christy. I'm Media Lizzie. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. I wanted to thank you and Malaak, and I'd like to ask you both a question. I know you both speak at these kinds of conferences with women all around the country and around the world. What is the best lesson that you've learned as those of us who are activists and academics and things, what is the one thing that you guys take away when you walk off the stage where you're like, I'm so going back in tomorrow. I'm going back in and I'm doing this tomorrow. I think people would like to know what motivates you beyond just the cause itself, but to stay on the forefront and be a principle for the rest of us.
Why don't you start? We'll give Malaak a moment to think about it.
I mean, I would say that there's something just amazing about being in a room full of people. I mean, it could be 5, but it could be 1,000, it could be 5,000, but there's something very invigorating about that. It's like, I'm a yoga practitioner as well, and there's something about going into a class that's like full of people, like-minded, wanting to connect with others, that gives you that energy to go back out there and do it again. I mean, it's wonderful to see people in the flesh after you connect with them in social media, and you've been an amazing, amazing sport, and I learned so much from the information that you share in social media too, so thank you.
Right. It's you all. I'm more inspired by you. I'm here because of you all. I'm inspired by the women here.
I would just add to that, I met a young woman who last year called me up and said, I'm going to start a foundation too. And it was very different than what I do, and I just loved it. The idea of being a role model to someone for something that they're trying to do, when in a lot of ways, I think we're trying to still figure it out. Our official foundation is relatively new. It's an amazing thing. And I go and fly out to New Orleans to be part of her foundation, and she comes in and supports my work. And I think you're right, when you talked about the mommy wars, in a way, I think a large percentage of that is a media creation. My actual experience has been that women are incredibly supportive, that it's your girlfriends who show up and help with your events and help stuff envelopes and help reach out to friends. And it's women bloggers who call and say, I want to give some information to others about what you're doing. It's amazing. So I think a lot of that is actually is not the reality of life, that it's sort of this media creation because it makes for better headlines, honestly.
This side. Christy and Malaak, thank you so much for your wonderful work. My question is really for Christy. I'm also interested in women and children in developing countries, and so I wanted to understand how your organization or your foundation is working differently from larger organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates or the World Health Organization. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of information out there, and you can easily get lost and not reach the people who need it directly. So what is it that you did differently in order to reach out to the people who really need it out there?
Well, the difference is, we're really an advocacy organization that's our main objective. And I think the difference between WHO and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is that we're very, very small. And ours is all about interface and inviting participation in this issue. World Health Organization, I don't think it really invites participation. I mean, it's a heady organization that we value greatly in terms of statistics and information, because it's a consensus of information around the world. But it's not where you're going to want to go and volunteer. This is not an option. So we are trying to create that opportunity for people to have like a tangible experience, a connection with the people that they're going to work with or support from a distance, but that you could actually have that meaningful, tangible experience. And the larger the organization you get, the harder it is to be able to offer that. So, thank you.
We have a question back here, and then we're going to come over here for some questions. We have roughly 5 minutes left, so the tighter the question, we'll give you tight answers, and we'll be able to get to everybody. Go ahead.
Hi. First, thanks for inspiring us all. My name is Cara Richardson-Whiteley, and I run the website fatwomanonthemountain.com. I've hiked Kilimanjaro 3 times to raise money for charity, and in the spring I hope to launch a whole new series of adventures where I take on other mountains because I'm sick of Kilimanjaro. For charity.
You're sick of Kilimanjaro.
I mean, I love Kilimanjaro, but it's time to move on to other mountains.
We understand.
Anyway, I wanted to talk about, I wanted you to talk about how you deal with donor fatigue, because, there comes a point where my friends and neighbors are kind of sick of running into me because they think I'm just going to ask them for money again. I always pay for my own trips, but, I do good things with them. But I'm wondering how you deal with donor fatigue and keeping people engaged in the process without them thinking that you're always looking for their contributions.
I can answer that a little bit if you'd like. One of the things that I think is really helpful is to try to tap into people not just supporting you, but I find people want a hands-on experience.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we know with our young women, I want people to know they can help a specific young woman. If they go to my website, they can say, I want to send you $20 for Sheba to do X.
Right.
And we are able to connect finance to a specific person. And I think you can sort of leverage that sort of idea by saying, take people with you when you hike. Most of the people who are probably giving you money are not hikers. Well, don't take them to Kilimanjaro. We don't want to kill anybody. But take them to have a hiking experience that will make them closer to what you do. Take them to the end result. If you are funding a project, have them come and help and volunteer in that so they understand the direct connection between their dollar and what you're trying to achieve. Because I think if it's done in a vacuum where there's this distance and they just, they don't feel like they're getting their hands on the help, it can be hard. One of the things, it's why we make sure that we really want our supporters to know that there are specific girls. Here's their background. Here's what they're about. This is their backstory. This is what they're trying to accomplish. You can jump in and change the direction of this particular life. It's not just, hey, send me money and I'm going to do good things with it. Yeah. So I would just say if you can tighten that message and be specific, that would make a big difference.
And
Question
always
down here.
continue to keep
sorry,
them
go ahead.
updated
Great
on
point.
their journey.
Great
Always
point.
continue to keep them updated on their journey.
Great. Let's get a question right here.
Actually, I just have a comment. Everyone on this side?
Oh, right here. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to Malaak and Christy, because I have a personal connection with your two charities, the Angel Rock and also Every Mother Counts. I was born in Sierra Leone, and my father's actually Timony, which is the tribe that the young man in the video discovered his heritage.
how
linked to.
wonderful.
So that's my cousin. You know, and also, as to the maternal health, my maternal grandmother died in childbirth, delivering, one of my aunts. So thank you very much for the work that you do. And then also, I immigrated to the United States when I was very young. And one of the challenges I had, because, you have an African accent, and African-American children don't get that education connection and realize the power, of their heritage. And in hindsight, now that I know, growing up being teased by Black American kids, because I was from Africa, that they had that experience that you provide, of knowing their heritage and going back, that they wouldn't do that. Like they would, know that there's more connection, that we're brothers and sisters, and not to have that reaction. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. Another one right here, and then we'll get to you next.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for your time today. It's great, and I really like what you do. As a bit of a new activist, how is it that I can get what I'm doing out there without having the credentials, I guess, that you three ladies have got? I'm a bit anonymous. In
You don't have the time to be a supermodel? Documentarian?
Can I be?
Sure. I think that's a great point, right? Which is, to some degree, all of us up here have a step up when it comes to leverage. And what we're doing is we're leveraging that, sort of what we've had in our past to be able to do this thing we're passionate about. What advice can we give people in order to do that from all of us, from where we are?
Well, I think it depends on what your goal is and how you want to affect. Like if you want to affect, your community or, specific people, then I think you can do that, and you don't need the whole world to know and the whole world to applause it. You know what I mean? It depends on what's your motivation also. I think with philanthropy, there are a lot of mixed motivations out there. And I think to be true to that, to what you want to do, and that you want to, if that's enough for you, then you don't need the huge platform, you don't need the big stage, you don't need the television interviews. You can still do so much without that. But if you want to take on global issues, or if you want to take on, real, really impact a life for a long period of time, or for a very important period of time, and it's going to be a longer term goal, then I guess you do have to have, you have to make more noise, and you have to do whatever you can to make that noise.
So we're out of time, but we're going to stick around for a little bit to talk, but we have to clear the stage, and we want to thank everybody for coming, first of all. Also, just want to remind you that awareness is really critical for all of us, so please check out our websites and follow us on Twitter, follow what we're doing, because we love to engage and to have conversations, especially with bloggers, about what we're doing. And then, of course, especially I think for all of us, what we do requires partnerships, and anybody who wants to speak about partnerships or ideas about partnerships, absolutely, let's have that conversation, and any way that we can be of assistance to you as well. Thank you very much for being with us, to our panelists. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Soledad O'Brien, Christy Turlington Burns, and Malaak Compton-Rock.